The audio that you've just heard is one of the last known recordings of a 6-year-old boy before he was tortured and murdered by the two people who were meant to be protecting him. Today we're going to be discussing an absolutely heartbreaking case. This case also highlights the failures within the UK from agencies that are meant to be protecting the most vulnerable in our society. Today's case takes place in Solihull, an affluent market town in the West Midlands. Arthur Labinjo-Hughes was born on the 4th of January 2014 to parents Olivia Labinjo-Hughes and Thomas Hughes. Arthur's parents were together for the first few years of his life. However, shortly after he turned 2, the pair separated, and both parents went on to have other relationships. Arthur remained in the custody of his mother, who went on to start a relationship with a man named Gary Cunningham, who she had met at an alcohol awareness course. Having met at an alcohol awareness course, both Olivia and Gary were often in an extremely drunken state. This led to a toxic relationship, which was filled with abuse and repeated calls to the police to break up the domestic incidents. Unfortunately, much of this was witnessed by Arthur, who, by the time he was 5 years old, had seen far too much. The abuse between the pair culminated on the 23rd of February 2019 when, in a drunken rage, Olivia fatally stabbed Gary 12 times, killing him. This led to 2 trials where Olivia was found guilty of manslaughter and jailed for 18 years. Following Olivia's sentencing, Arthur was now in the custody of his father, Thomas Hughes, and they lived together in an annex in the back of Thomas's parents' garden. Arthur was reported to be doing well following the move. Arthur was reported to be settling in well in his new school, and he also had a great relationship with his extended family, which included his grandmother, granddad and uncle. In addition to this, he was a huge fan of the local football team, Birmingham City Football Club, and Arthur had developed an absolutely infectious personality.
Arthur was the happiest child. He was very, very much loved by everyone. He was my daughter's baby bear, and he was my sunny delight. He was always happy, and that's why I called him Sunny Delight. He was gentle, caring, compassionate. He had a wicked sense of humour. He really did. He was just adorable.
In August of 2019, Thomas met Emma Tustin on the dating site Plenty of Fish. Emma was a single mother of 4, however, she only had custody of 2 of her children. Emma was later described by ex-partners as a master manipulator and attention seeker. The pair soon began a serious relationship, and Thomas was introduced to Emma's 2 young children, and Emma was introduced to Arthur. Shortly after the relationship began, family members of Arthur's commented on Thomas becoming stricter with Arthur and Arthur becoming more fearful of getting into trouble. In addition to this, Arthur's uncle recalls an incident in which an argument broke out between him and Emma because he had bought Arthur a Subway sandwich, which Emma had deemed to be an unnecessary treat. This caused a strain between Thomas's family and Emma. The family were also concerned about the lack of time Emma was spending with her own 2 young children since the relationship with Thomas had begun. Another incident ensued on New Year's Eve of 2019 when Thomas's father got into a heated argument with Thomas over his actions towards Arthur. Thomas's father claimed that Thomas was overly aggressive with Arthur and had even hit the then 5-year-old boy after Emma had claimed that Arthur had been rude towards her. It's clear from family testimonies that as the relationship with Emma and Thomas began, the relationship between Thomas and Arthur deteriorated, with Emma becoming more involved in the way that Thomas disciplined Arthur. Several months later, in March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic had hit, which led to the closure of all schools in the UK and a national lockdown was imposed.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. Because the critical thing we must do to stop the disease spreading between households. That is why people will only be allowed to leave their home for the following
Following these new measures that were put in by the government, this prompted Thomas Hughes and Arthur to move in with Emma Tustin. Arthur was now regularly in the care of Emma, and a dramatic shift in his behaviour was noted by his paternal family, with his grandmother going as far as to plead with Thomas to allow her to look after the young boy instead. However, due to the ongoing dispute between Thomas's family and his relationship with Emma, this request was declined. It was also around this time that Thomas was no longer allowing Arthur to visit his maternal grandmother. It is believed this decision was influenced by Emma. Arthur was now in an extremely vulnerable position, having been cut off from the outside world, with no school, no grandparents and no uncles or aunts there to protect him from what was coming. In April of 2022, Arthur, then 6, was involved in a fight with Emma's young son, following which Thomas took Arthur to his parents' house to defuse the situation. Once there, Arthur was observed to be physically shaken and went on to reveal to the extended family that Emma had grabbed his head and banged it against the wall, whilst calling him a horrible, ugly brat. Shocked at this revelation, Arthur's grandmother's despair would grow when she discovered bruises on the young boy's back. She took several pictures of this and confronted Thomas about what she had seen. Thomas dismissed her concerns. This followed another request from Arthur's grandmother to allow her to look after the young boy. This was also dismissed by Thomas. Following on from this, a call was made to social services. The call to social services should have been where this story ended. The abuse and trauma that Arthur was going through should have been stopped. However, this isn't the case, and Arthur would meet a much more tragic end. The call to social services resulted in a visit to the home of Emma and Thomas on April 17th, 2020, from a social worker who was also accompanied by a family support worker. They claimed that Arthur seemed very happy and very safe in his environment, and they concluded that there was no safeguarding concerns around Arthur. The bruising on Arthur's back was dismissed as being caused by play fighting. What the social worker and the family support officer didn't know was that Emma knew exactly how to pull the wool over their eyes. You see, she had previously dealt with social services on many occasions, having been reported for the care that she was providing to her own 2 young children. Emma knew exactly what to say in order to dismiss the concerns, and she knew exactly how to coach Arthur to make it seem like a believable story. Even with Emma's history of dealing with social services, questions remain around why this was not picked up. Why did the social worker and the family support worker not see what was happening to Arthur? Following the visit from social services, when Arthur's paternal family were informed that there was no safeguarding concerns, a worried uncle of Arthur visited the family home at Cranwell Road. This resulted in Thomas calling 999 to report an incident of harassment. This led to Arthur's uncle being visited by the police. He advised them of why he visited the home and about his concerns for young Arthur. However, the police seemed more concerned with Arthur's uncle breaking the lockdown rules, and he was advised that if he was to visit the family home on Cromwell Road again, he would be arrested. The police at the time advised Arthur's uncle that a review had been conducted by social services and that they were satisfied with the findings from the social services and that they also held no safeguarding concerns for Arthur. It seemed that between the social services and the police, nobody was really willing to investigate what was happening to poor Arthur. The response from the police, social services, along with the national lockdown and school closures, had placed Arthur in the hands of 2 ruthless adults who had been entrusted to care for him. With no one to stop them, they became more depraved in their abuse towards Arthur. By the time May 2020 had rolled around, Arthur was no longer being fed regular meals. He was being treated as a pariah in his own home. He was made to stand in the hallway of his home for hours on end as punishment for apparent misbehaviours. As Arthur suffered months of abuse, the true reason behind the abuse was revealed in text messages between Thomas and Emma, with Emma revealing to Thomas, "I want you, but I don't want him." It was also during this time that Emma and Thomas had refused Arthur the comfort of a bed. He was removed from the children's bedroom and made to sleep on the living room floor. By day, Arthur was made to stand in the hallway for hours on end, and by night he was made to sleep on the floor by himself. A video camera that Thomas and Emma had installed to keep watch over Arthur revealed the pair, alongside Emma's children, would spend family time watching TV, eating ice cream and enjoying the sun, while 6-year-old Arthur would have to stand in the hallway in a fleece onesie on a hot summer's day. Sadly, this would be the same fleece onesie that little Arthur would be wearing until the time of his death. The video camera footage revealed that between June the 12th and June the 14th, Arthur had spent 35 hours in isolation stood in the hallway of his home on Cranwell Road. The next day, on June the 15th, Emma attended a hairdresser's appointment at the home of her hairdresser. Arthur attended the appointment with her and was made to stand facing the wall for the duration of the 6-hour appointment. The hairdresser reported that when Thomas arrived to pick the pair up, Arthur was grabbed by the scuff of his neck and was sworn at by both Emma and Thomas. Later the same day, video camera footage captured Thomas beating Arthur with a belt. After this, Thomas had left the home and texted Emma, "Just end him." On the morning of June the 16th, video camera footage captured Arthur waking up on the living room floor and struggling to move his duvet out of the room because he was so weak and malnourished. Emma returned to the hairdressers alongside Arthur and Thomas. The hairdresser later reported that Arthur was berated by both Thomas and Emma. She also revealed that at one point she could hear Arthur crying out in pain, and Emma revealed that Thomas was pressure pointing him. Before the trio left, the hairdresser's partner secretly gave Arthur some water as he looked so weak and malnourished. By 1 p.m, the trio were back home on Cranwell Road, where the fatal attack began. According to Emma, Arthur was upstairs and Thomas had gone to the shops. Emma claimed that Arthur threw himself against her bedroom door, causing it to hit his head. And it is believed it was around this time that Emma forced Arthur to drink highly concentrated salt water as a punishment. Phone records show that Emma sent a picture of Arthur crying on the hallway floor to Thomas at 2:15 p.m. And it is believed that this is when the fatal attack began. Emma would go on to relentlessly beat Arthur for the next 15 minutes. Injuries to the little boy's body was later compared to that of a car crash victim. In particular, he had suffered a detached retina, which a pathologist said was very rare in a child head trauma case. Arthur's little body had over 130 injuries, which were consistent with having been beaten and shaken. In addition, Arthur's sodium levels were described as off the scale, consistent with salt poisoning. By the time the attack had ended, Emma was aware that Arthur was not responding, and in a bid to cover her tracks, had texted Thomas telling him that Arthur had attacked her and had knocked himself out by headbutting himself on the floor. CCTV footage showed Emma trying to prop Arthur up on the sofa, and Thomas can be seen trying to give Arthur paracetamol. However, the pair waited 12 minutes before calling emergency services.
Ambulance service, is the patient breathing?
Barely.
Okay, is he breathing right now though, even if he's...
Is he breathing, Tom? He keeps taking big dark breaths. Basically, my 6-year-old stepson is falling, he's banged his head.
Okay.
And while he was on the floor, he's banged his head another 5 times.
Okay.
He's lost colour, he's got a big lump on his head.
Is he awake?
So what, sorry?
Is he awake?
He's half in and out,
Okay.
but he's banged his head quite hard.
Is his breathing noisy or abnormal?
Is it noisy or abnormal? It's barely there, he's barely breathing, he's in and out, he's taking it hard.
Okay.
He's basically been treating us all like shit. He's threw himself on the floor, he's headbutting the floor I'm trying to pick him up in the process. He's headbutted me in the process.
Okay.
I've got him up. He was breathing like a little bit better at first.
Yeah.
Washed him down, put some water down him, tried to obviously get him
Okay.
like a bit more colour in him. But then obviously I've seen the lump on his head that he's done to himself.
Right. Help's been arranged for him. Okay.
Yeah.
The call to emergency services and body camera footage worn by police who arrested Emma shows that she blamed Arthur for his own injuries, a claim that she would stick by during the trial. She went on to claim that she was the victim and Arthur had tried to attack her and had then headbutted himself, with Emma becoming emotional when talking about what she had to go through. She also claimed that he had battered her children. Emma had used every excuse she could think of to blame a defenceless younger boy for the injuries that she had inflicted upon him.
Briefly, what happened?
Basically, he'd gone out to get me a birthday cake and stuff for the kids. Arthur was told to sit on the thinking step. Arthur's put himself all over the floor. He's banged himself off the radiator. He's hit me, he's kicked me in the process of me trying to get him back on the thinking step. He's then gone on all fours on the floor and I've told him to get up. And I shut the door over and all I heard was a crack off the floor. He was headbutting the floor on all fours. Headbutted the floor once, said, Arthur, get up, you're going to hurt yourself, I've phoned your dad. He went, I don't care. At that point he was fine. And then he dropped his head again as I've tried to bear hug him and pick him up, and he headbutted the floor 3 times.
Here on this carpet?
Round about, the door was shut, so if you go in, I'll show you. It's probably about here his head was, but it's concrete, there's no underlay under that. He'd knocked himself unconscious. I picked him up, put him on the sofa, poured water in his mouth.
So you come in, he's banged his head 3 or 4 times here.
I was in the kitchen, then I'd sat down in the living room and that's when he threw himself on the floor.
And you heard him banging his head. So what did you do?
I came out to him and told him to get up. He told me no. So I tried to bear hug him and put my arms underneath him and pick him up. And he dropped and he banged his head another 3 times off the floor. And as I picked him up, he hit me and he kicked me as I was trying to get him up. Like I say, he's like the last 6 months. He's battered both my kids, he's smashed this house to pieces, he's battered his dad, he's hit me. When I tried to get him off the floor from headbutting the floor, he headbutted me and he kicked me and he's hit me. Yesterday we went to my friend's house and he pushed me down 5 stairs. You're not my real mum, I hate you. I'm going to get my mum to kill you, he said. And even so, I've done my best for that kid.
Arthur was taken to Birmingham's Children's Hospital, a specialist trauma centre for children. However, nothing could be done to save Arthur, and his life support machine was turned off at 1 a.m. on June 17th, 2020, aged 6 years old. At the trial, Thomas and Emma were tried for manslaughter and murder, with text messages, voice notes and, most crucially, video evidence all showing a catalogue of abuse the pair subjected Arthur to over a number of months. The most heartbreaking evidence came in the form of a voice note from Arthur, crying out, "Nobody loves me." Despite both denying responsibility, they were both found guilty of murder and manslaughter respectively. Emma was sentenced to life with a minimum term of 29 years, and Thomas was sentenced to 21 years, which was later increased upon appeal to 24 years. Following the death of Arthur, widespread outcry led to the government launching a major review into the agency's task with protecting children at risk of abuse and neglect within Solihull. The findings of this review are yet to be released. Following the trial, a number of questions still remain around Arthur's death. Did lockdown lead to Arthur's death? Did social services and police do enough for Arthur? And most importantly, are there still children like Arthur being let down by the system? This brings us to the end of the video. Now, this was a really hard video to put together. Doing the research, I had to take multiple breaks because it was just so heartbreaking listening to little Arthur's voice and seeing the video footage of him and just hearing and reading about how callous they were towards him. As this is my first video, I'd really appreciate some feedback on what I can improve on and what you'd like to see going forward. Thanks for listening, guys.